is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Well, welcome into another edition of 3MA. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, as always, here on the show, and we will be breaking down a shutout season-opening victory for the Wildcats over SEMO. No problems at all. K-State up 35-0 at halftime, and they roll from there. And that means that we'll spend the next probably hour and a half talking about Avery Johnson. So get ready for it here on the 3MA podcast, which, of course, is brought to you by our friends at Holiday Distillery. Raise a glass in honor of K-State dropping a season-opening shutout, and make sure it's a glass of 360 vodka or Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, both courtesy of our friends at Holiday Distillery. They are great K-State folks who support us here on the pod, so make sure you support them as well. Whether you are a bourbon guy, whether you're more into the 360 vodka, either way, they've got you covered. So go support Holiday Distillery. Everyone's been trying to put the governor on me with the Avery talk, including Derek here, before we get the show up and running. But I was just watching, I hop on Twitter. What's the first thing that I see this morning? It was someone putting Avery Johnson highlights to Aerosmith's "I Don't Want to Miss a Thing" in the background. So I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, DY.
Yeah. Hey, we'll dig right into it. I don't think there's a reason to throttle back excitement because he's the future. But that would be my only part of maybe using a governor on this, is like it is the future, because you do potentially already have the best quarterback in the Big 12 and Will Howard. So great problems to have. Avery, a few good throws, handful of really good runs. So there is a lot of excitement to be had. All I've done, and what's kind of tempered my excitement a little bit, is that I know we're still like probably a year away from that. I think we'll see flashes this year from time to time when the situation allows. But as I told John before we started the show, and he actually agreed with this, so this is an important item to keep in mind. There's no easy way to play Avery this year because you don't want to pull Will Howard.
Cole, your thoughts?
I mean, Collins out there running halfback passes to Will Howard in the SEMO game in the season opener. So I have some trust factor that there may be some trick plays that they could incorporate with Avery. Maybe I think I joked with you guys yesterday, like maybe just line Avery up a wide receiver, have Will chuck it out to him, have him chuck it back to Will, have Will, have Avery take off and run after he catches it, or do a double pass. I mean, there's a lot of trick plays in that playbook. I mean, you hate to burn up. I don't even want to bring up burning a red shirt, because let's be honest here, we don't expect Avery to be here by year 4 or 5 anyways. So, well, especially year 5. So I really need to worry about red shirt. You got a guy that's that athletic and toolsy and dynamic. You'll have to probably figure out a way to work him into the fold, at least situationally. And to DY's point, and he's talked about it before on here, it's a complicated factor because you have one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 and you don't want to disrupt the flow of the offense too much and have too many multiple quarterbacks going on and off the field. So I don't know how they do it, but I have a lot of trust in Colin Klein and this coaching staff to figure out a way to make something work, even if it's just situationally, and everything to go well. But DY, to what you just said, I think we were on the same page. Like, Will Howard completed 70% of his passes, 297 yards, 11.4 yards per pass yesterday. Just took off right where things left at the end of last season over the back half of the year. And don't want Will to be forgotten about with the Avery buzz and hype, because Will was terrific once again, and K-State has one of the best quarterbacks in this league.
Well, he's a grown man. I don't really think he feels forgotten about, or that he really cares, because I think he knows what he just did too. I have a way to kind of make it work. Or he's like, how do you do that? You have these quarterbacks coming in and out of the field. I don't do that, because I think that is a rhythm disruptor, and you'll get people coming at your neck if you probably will start to waltz into that territory. Just beat people well enough that you can go into the fourth quarter and bring in the backups.
Yeah, well, hey, looks like you could probably do that when you play TCU. Baylor's on the schedule this year, right? Texas Tech. So,
I know we shouldn't dig into that too much. I will pump the brakes on the Texas Tech stuff. I think they're still going to be fine. TCU and Baylor, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, Tech was a weird situational spot in the altitude in Laramie. I don't take a lot from that. In fact, I think Texas Tech's going to come home and beat Oregon in Lubbock this weekend. So I don't take a ton from that. But yeah, I mean, the Baylor and TCU thing, that's a bit of a mess. John, touched on Avery, so we'll just expand. I mean, Pro Football Focus had him as the highest graded player on K-State's team. In that game, now again, it was fourth quarter, late in the third quarter, fourth quarter, kind of mop-up duty, and it was SEMO, but kind of shows how good Avery was when he was on the football field. And one thing that I think about, guys, is you start to see Avery hype already take off, and guys like Dan Rubenstein of the Solid Verbal talking about him and these highlights playing. Think about like a guy like Joshua Manning who went to Missouri. I mean, think about receiver recruits and guys that are going to be entering the portal in the offseason and some of the high-profile wide receivers that are out there in the recruiting process that you could chase. I mean, guys are going to see those Avery clips and just reinforce, hey, I want to play with a guy like that for the next couple of years in the future. So I think there's a lot of positives to be had with what we saw from Avery.
I don't know why I'm going back to it, but like I just thought this with Texas Tech because they're kind of like the dark horse sleeper, like became a media darling a little bit the way Kansas State did last offseason, right? To potentially win a Big 12, at least compete for it. So is Wyoming just their Tulane game?
Well, yeah, I was making that observation on YouTube last night. I was like, hey, I mean, look, the season's not done. I think Texas Tech +7 is a pretty good bet. That's what I was seeing it at yesterday. So yeah, I'm with you.
Score 81.
I think Tech's gonna be okay. But yes, weird spot for the Big 12. Not a great week overall. I guess to put the cap on the Avery discussion, I would just say the other thing that we found out with that is like Cole and I were both very surprised that they didn't at least throw Jake Rubley in for a series in there somewhere, because clearly they know just what they have in Avery Johnson on their hands, and they know that they need to just get him reps and get him in the game for not only, keeping a guy happy's sake, but also just like, hey, this is an incredible talent. You need reps to develop. We need to get him as many reps as possible. So it superseded kind of what I thought would be DY more of like Kleiman. He's always really partial to the guys and the guys that stick around and work hard. And like Jake Rubley has done that. And yet they still knew, like, to me, it was like a business decision. I had people tweeting me, asking me like, what happened to Rubley? And I was like, this is a business decision, guys. Like, you see what Avery Johnson is when he steps out there on the field. Like, they realize what they have, and you need to start molding this guy with game reps as much as you possibly can. So that's really all it is. It's a tough break. It's a brutal sport at times, and I feel for Jake Rubley as far as that goes. But I just kind of, it's like them's the breaks right now. Look at what they have.
Yeah, and hats off to Jake Rubley, because they also said like he was one of the main staples that was very involved in getting Avery ready, even when he found out. So it's a guy that continues to be exactly what they want him to be in the locker room, regardless of what happens to him. So a very unselfish player, unselfish dude, that, and that value is going to be immense, because he's going to have a large part in Avery Johnson's, early development, or already has. So that's a big deal. And yeah, to me, that did surprise me, but mainly because of what we typically see the staff do. I thought we would see all three quarterbacks. I still thought we'd see Avery, but I thought we'd see Jake Rubley as well. And this kind of just tells me that they felt like it very necessary to get Avery Johnson as many reps as possible at the end of the game. And then my question becomes, why, right? Why do you need to do that right now? That means I think that they envision Avery Johnson as the primary guy after Will Howard already.
I mean, John, we talked about it on the Patreon.com 3-Mile show post-game reaction. A lot of credit to guys like Jake Rubley. When Avery Johnson came here in the spring, they saw how dynamic he was. I mean, Avery was here for spring ball. They could have entered the portal at any point, and they chose to stick around and compete for the job. And so a lot of credit to Jake Rubley and those guys that are still in this program, still helping a guy like Avery get ready. I think we all thought if there was some sort of long-term situation where, heaven forbid, something happened to Will, Avery would be the guy they went to. But I thought they would probably go to Jake Rubley in that situation for a series or two before Avery, just out of respect to the veteran guy and be sensitive to that fact. But the fact that they went to Avery tells you a lot of things. And I think from a quarterback room standpoint, we talked about before how it might be the most talented quarterback room K-State's had in a long, long time. And I can't recall a situation where they've had a quarterback like Will Howard, who's as good as he is, and then a backup number 2 like Avery Johnson being as good as he is. Like the top 2 quarterbacks on this roster are so talented. I mean, you remember L. Roberson, John, and the hype that came in with him, but remember what he looked like throwing the ball his first couple of years? I mean, he was spiking the ball into the ground. And look what Avery looked like as a true freshman 18-year-old out there, just whistling the ball on a line right on the money to these guys. It's just, it was special.
Pretty effortless. I mean, all of it looks very effortless for him. And then that's also, well, he's just outrunning dudes. So yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I could talk about it for the next hour and a half if you really wanted me to. But as we transition here, and the defense looked ahead of schedule, which was fantastic. They played a great game, obviously with a shutout. I am going to steer the conversation toward the offense more here first, just because we're already kind of down that road. But I also want to mention, because Cole brought it up, on our Patreon, you can get another hour of instant post-game reaction to all of this that Cole and I did right after the game. Shout out to our friends at the Bluemont Hotel for allowing us to do that there. But patreon.com/3ma if you want access to that. Not only that, but we had a bunch of content throughout the week. Brody's prediction, depth chart breakdown. Cole puts the stats up there that you always hear coming out on the pod. And we have a Discord community now, too, where you can communicate with us. All of that available if you want to sign up on Patreon, patreon.com/3ma, just $5 a month to do that. So please, if you have interest, make sure you head over there. But yes, Will Howard deserves a lot of praise for his game. He became only the 7th player in Big 12 history to throw a touchdown pass, rush for a TD, and have a receiving TD in the same game. And Will Howard did it in the first half after he caught the touchdown pass from Treshaun Ward toward the end of the half on the trick play. He was really good, almost threw for 300 yards, had one bad throw where he's getting hit, sails one, and it winds up being an interception. Probably a bad decision anyway, but overall 18 of 26, 297, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and then 4 total touchdowns if you throw in the rushing TD and the receiving TD. I mean, doing all that without Keegan Johnson, who didn't play, who was going to be the number 1 wide receiver this year, you'd have to be pretty happy, I think, with Howard and just the offense in general, kind of sloppily working their way to 588 total yards. At least portions of it in the first half seemed to be a little bit sloppy, but they still just rolled up and down the field.
Yeah, I would call Will Howard's day pretty good. Maybe not sharp, but pretty good. And his ball placement was pretty on point for the most part. There was a few that got away from him. You know, I been discussing this a little bit with, multiple people trying to, I guess, take stock and inventory of everything that we saw on Saturday from an offensive standpoint and then from a defensive standpoint. I like to talk to, guys that have coached, multiple football coaches at the high school level and otherwise, and just kind of, think about and evaluate everything that we did see from the good and the bad. Now, I think the offensive line is a good place to start because I think that's what most people, perhaps, at least me, thought would be the most dominating position going into the game, just because it's, probably an FCS defensive front that's probably a little overmatched when you consider the size and physicality of the Kansas State offensive line and the amount of cohesion and chemistry that they should have based on the returning experience, the career starts, having already won a conference title. I thought they would kind of come in and hit the ground running, but they didn't. They got rolled in the second half, probably because of leaning on that FCS defensive line a little bit and wearing them down because the tinier holes became gaping holes, and DJ Giddens was running through them with regularity. But before that, the holes weren't as big. Especially DJ Giddens, I think his first, it felt like 7-8 carries where the yards were hard to come by. Treshaun Ward was getting his, interestingly enough, at that point. And I thought he had a good debut and got his feet wet, even though that they were working everything between those two backs. I thought DJ Giddens was the guy they leaned on the most, but that was more because they're still integrating Treshaun Ward. But Ben Sinnott, really good first half. Obviously didn't have to play much in the second half, but the offensive line is where I thought I'd expected more, but I thought Cooper Beebe was elite. I don't think people know how great it was what he did in that game, right? Not only did he switch between guard and tackle, he switched between the left and the right side. That is unheard of for an offensive lineman to do in the same game, and I don't know that people understand the difficulty in doing that. There's a reason why it's very rare and nobody does it. What he did, that is special. There's a reason why he's probably the best offensive player in the Big 12, and he proved it in the season opener. KT Leviston, damn good. He's all Big 12 caliber at this point. He was dominant. He was really, really good. So those two really stood out. I thought the wide receivers were probably the funnest thing to talk about at this point because they really are, I think, the ones in a positive way surprised me. maybe I was a little underwhelmed by the offensive line, but I think I was overwhelmed by the wide receivers, and in particular, RJ Garcia, because he was open a lot. He was really good after the catch, really good hands. Yes, I want to see a bigger sample size and against maybe Power 5 competition and see how it translates to that. But there were some things that I saw that definitely will translate. It has me excited for what he's going to be able to do this year. And it's going to be nice to see him and Keegan Johnson play on the same field together and what that looks like, since we have yet to see it. Another one I wanted to point out is Trace Bivey. There was the long throw from Avery Johnson to Trace Bivey. That was a brilliant route by Trace Bivey to create separation and do what he did downfield and get open for Avery Johnson. But there's a little bit that it wasn't a great throw by Avery. It was actually a great adjustment by Trace Bivey. So that if I wanted to find a little carrot in the offensive observations, it's that Trace Bivey showed me something that maybe he can be a productive player for Kansas State this season if they want to rely on him.
Well, I'm certainly hoping that's the way that's tracking, man. He is a different sort of dude. He just looks better coming off the bus than anything K-State's had a receiver in a long time. And so seeing Avery connect with him late in the game was very, very tantalizing. We get Cole's thoughts on the offense here in just a moment. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can tell that I am wearing my home field gear today, as you all should be by this point in time. We have now hit the season. It was game one. I hope you had your home field apparel on at the game, but if not, there is still time. It is the best gear around. If you are a K-State fan, lots of old school retro logos. They're now working in the old Cat Script basketball logo, which I like. They've got the old Copper Bowl shirt from 1993. If you want to go really old school as far as that is concerned, multiple new K-State collections have dropped within the last couple of months. So they are plenty stocked up on K-State designs. Homefieldapparel.com is where you need to go to check all that out. You can even get other teams. They've got over 100 other teams at homefieldapparel.com. But get stocked up. It is, I'm forgetting the code here, guys. Help me out, Cole. What, 3MA23 for 15% off?
Yep, 3MA23.
3MA23. 3MA23 if you want 15% off your first order at Homefield. If you have not gone down that road before, highly, highly encourage it. We all have a ton of home field gear, and that's basically all I wear these days if I'm going to a K-State game. So homefieldapparel.com, make sure and get stocked up there. We'll get Cole's thoughts on the offense coming up next.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Hey guys, it's Benny Heiss from Benny and the Bets, and when it comes to improving your golf performance, there is nothing quite like a PXG custom club fitting experience with a true PXG fitting specialist. This data-driven fitting is going to help determine the right club heads, perfect loft, lie, and shafts to be able to completely transform and change your game, and also lower your scores in the process. So no matter your skill level, you can be fitted for PXG's flagship Gen 6 clubs. They're designed to deliver incredible gains in distance, accuracy, and forgiveness. And for a limited time, you can use the code PXG75 when you sign up for a custom fit and get 75% off your fitting at pxg.com. Or you can give their store in Kansas City a call at 913-396-6100.
All right, so there was a lot covered there by Derek. Wide receivers, impressive. Offensive line, perhaps a bit underwhelming. Cole, what stood out to you most about the offense?
Let's start out with the offensive line because DY hit on it. I mean, to start off, maybe more particularly in the first half, I thought the offensive line was a little bit underwhelming with so many guys returning. But they, something we hadn't talked about a lot is Carver Willis at right tackle, and in the offseason, talking about him having to handle and man that spot and really make his first career start in place of Christian Duffy, who we've known for a while was going to miss at least probably the first couple of games due to an offseason injury. So a little underwhelming. They still run for 228 yards and almost 6 yards per carry, but early on in that game, they weren't having a ton of success running it up the middle. I just assume, guys, even when you return so many guys on the offensive line, it just takes a little bit of time for those guys to gel early in the year. I think back to last year, and by the time Big 12 play hit, that offensive line seemed to have found their groove and really got things going. And I think Connor Riley and them will be just fine over the ensuing next couple of weeks. They'll be much better. And it's not like they were, awful by any means. I mean, they put up 588 yards of offense. I don't believe they gave up a sack. DY, did they give up a sack?
I don't think so. They might have been bailed out a couple times in the quarterback play, but
yeah, they were because there were a couple times a free rusher was coming in, and actually DJ Giddens, he picked up one, and Pro Football Focus had DJ Giddens as K-State's second best pass blocker.
He picked up pass protection, I want to say 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, Cooper Beebe was number 1, obviously, and then DJ Giddens was your number 2 pass blocker, which, I mean, that speaks volumes for DJ. And I mean, his physicality, he's a big dude, so his ability to pick up the blitz, that's going to be a big factor for him as well, and I thought he did well. Cooper Beebe, I almost feel bad because I overlook Cooper Beebe because you just rely on him and count on him at this point. He's maybe the best offensive lineman in college football. I mean, the versatility factor too, like you said, DY, just to know you can count on to slide him anywhere on that offensive line and things are going to be just fine is an incredible feeling. And so he was terrific. You mentioned KT Leviston. He was terrific as well. And I think he could be a guy that could be a first or second all Big 12 team tackle this year. I think KT Leviston's going to be drafted just like Cooper Beebe up front. The wide receiver position, guys, like my biggest takeaway. So first of all, it sucked that Keegan Johnson didn't play because he was somebody that I think we were all really looking forward to watch. But on the positive end, you got a lot of other guys more reps, and we were able to see what RJ Garcia could be and all the offseason buzz around him. And then he leads the team with 119 yards receiving on 5 receptions. You saw a lot of things from him. And that was kind of the question, who's the number 3 receiver? We know RJ has been hyped up. Is it going to hit this year, him as a sophomore? And it sure looks like it very well might. And so if they have him, Phillip Brooks, and then Keegan being what we think Keegan can be, along with Ben Sennett, and then these running backs and Ward and Giddens, the offense can be very dynamic and explosive with Will Howard at quarterback. So my takeaway was we saw the dudes that we knew were going to be good, mostly do good things. And then we see what RJ does, and it just shows you have another weapon to this passing game to add into the fold. And so I'm excited for it. Jaden Jackson, had a couple nice catches early on the game, the 33-yard touchdown. He got some more reps. So they're just building more depth at the receiver position. And Trace Spivey, John, you mentioned it. I mean, he's the most put together wide receiver I've seen in a K-State uniform in a long time. He certainly looks the part. And that might be a guy that's tough to redshirt.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to Xavier Lloyd. He caught a ball, and the way he turned upfield, I'm like, man, I don't think we should have, because I think people gloss over him because he's been a second unit receiver. This is the second season now. He's been on that second team of receivers. I think he might be a dude that, if had to be counted on, could do something.
Yeah, he looked kind of explosive when he just shot up off field. How big is he, DY? Is he like 6'2"?
Yeah, probably.
A little bigger.
And he's one of those guys that has a scholarship paid for through the NIL. So he might be, if it wasn't for that, he might be a regular scholarship player anyway. Blue Springs kid, I think.
Okay, yeah, I mean, maybe not totally fair to him, but all I remember is just last year, the Texas game, when receivers were down hurt at the end of the game and Xavier Lloyd trying to play on that last drive and just things not going very well. So unfair to him, but that had been my perception of him before the actual game on Saturday. Keegan Johnson didn't play, and to me, I mean, it's like the one thing that seemingly was missing from the offense is just a lot of really good players, but not like a home run game breaker, right? Like Deuce Vaughn is the guy that can just take it at any second to go to the house. K-State had recruited one and had him committed in Dylan Edwards, and instead he was scoring 4 touchdowns for Coach Prime in Colorado on Saturday, which, watch that, and it's just like, man, if the offense had that, they would be borderline unstoppable. Now, maybe Keegan Johnson is going to be that. He did not play. He was not in uniform. What insight do you have to offer there, DY, on what's going on with Keegan?
I think that's probably a fair thing to say. Now, I think they're all explosive in their own ways. Maybe not take it to the house explosive, but you had some long plays from RJ Garcia, from DJ Giddens. But DJ Giddens was, nabbed by the sideline a couple times. I think caught from behind once. RJ Garcia, there was one time I thought he could pull away and he was kind of caught or elected to go out of bounds because he knew he was going to get caught. So I think it's fair to say maybe you have a guys that can get 30, 40, 50, but maybe not a home run guy. Maybe Keegan Johnson can be that. What I've been told is that's kind of was precautionary in nature. Now, it happened once during training camp too, so you hope this is not a repetitive thing, right? So we'll see. Chris Kleiman called him day to day. Something that flared up, not even on Wednesday. I think even on Wednesday, everything was going to plan that Keegan Johnson was going to play, and there was no concerns. He was He was at a couple of different media availabilities as well. I know we interviewed him in Veneer on Tuesday. So this was something that was, last minute that he kind of got pulled and scratched. So I don't think it's long-term or severe. They don't consider it long-term or severe. They consider it precautionary, and hopefully that continues to unfold in that way. And we see him against Troy. At this point, I have every expectation that he's going to play against Troy, but maybe this is something that's touch and go until it's completely behind.
Certainly a big piece of this offense because he's probably their most explosive weapon in the passing game aside from Ben Sennett, and is part of the reason they're just counting on him. You lose Malik Knowles and Cade Warner, you need Keegan Johnson to be that big play wide receiver in addition to some of the other guys they have. DY, you mentioned they had 8 plays of over 20 yards in this game. 7 were through the air. 6 came from the arm of Will Howard. So there were some explosive plays, especially in the passing game, and RJ had several of those, and then Ben Sennett had a couple as well. So, yeah, hopefully Keegan Johnson gets back sooner than later. And if they need to hold him out of the Troy game, I think they'll be okay, honestly, not to overlook Troy too much, because I think they do obviously present a different challenge than what SEMO presented. Sun Belt champs coming in, a team that was ranked top 20 at the end of last year in the final AP poll, but just make sure he's ready by Mizzou and good to go by then. And then I'm just can't wait to see him play.
I don't know if I want Mizzou to be his first game. That's the only thing.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I would really.
They only played last year. Yeah, that's a lot of rust to knock off. So,
would really prefer him get out there and have a game to shake some stuff off against Troy. I would feel a little uneasy about that going to Mizzou. Now, I mean, look, what we saw on the field already on Saturday anyway, without Keegan Johnson, may well be enough to beat Mizzou. Should be enough to beat Mizzou, I would say. But yeah, you'd love to have the extra insurance there. I don't know. I didn't watch a second of Mizzou's game. They beat South Dakota, right? South Dakota seemed like okay.
They took care of business. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you know who didn't take care of business? Troy. They struggled with Stephen F. Austin. Gave up a lot of points. That's a team where you thought they were going to be a defensive team. They scored a lot, gave up a lot.
You know what was weird about that, D? I was looking at the box score. They only gave up 240 yards and like 4 yards per play. But there was a fumble return for a touchdown by Stephen F. Austin and some other wacky things that happened. So, but still, I mean, you would expect them not to give up 30. Now 23 were on the defense to a Stephen F. Austin team. They won that game 48-30. But yeah, we'll dive more into Troy on the pregame show that drops later this week. They'll certainly present a test.
That did enforce my opinion that they're overrated this year, though.
Okay. Well, great to have that leading into Troy week. Give them some bulletin board material. So, thank you, DY, for that.
Hey, we did that all year. We won a Big 12 title.
They're going to have DY's face plastered. They're going to have DY's face plastered around the locker room with that quote clipped to it.
Hey, just the other day, I was at the gym and walked up to a guy who was wearing a Tulane football shirt, DY, okay? So let me just float that out there as a nice little reminder.
Did your PTSD flare up?
Little bit, yeah. It was not great. It was not great. You know what is great, though? It was our friends at DraftKings. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? But the wait is over. Fortunately, the wait is not over for Chris Jones, but the wait is over for NFL football. It's here. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get. Download now and use code KCSN to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code KCSN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOP-ENY or text HOPE-NY. HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Please get me to a break. We are back next.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, a lot of talk about the offense. The defense, I think we all felt like was ahead of schedule. I did not anticipate a shutout at all. We were sitting here on the preview pod kind of cautioning you, like, hey, if the defense gives up some long pass plays here, if the secondary is getting things worked out, if the pass rush isn't going to be there, don't be too alarmed if you give up 20 points in this season opener to SEMO. Instead, they give up 0, zippo. And I thought they really controlled the line of scrimmage on the defensive side of the ball. My biggest concern about the defense was the defensive line. And not only did Uso get in and play a little bit, limited, I saw it was like 11 snaps. So, they were healthy-ish there, but, your number 2 and number 3 nose tackles seemed to play really good up front. Like, there was a lot that I felt very positive about on the defensive side of the ball. It makes me feel real good about where they're at.
And I think you hit on the, I think you hit on the right notes too. It's the defensive line. I thought Khalid Duke really got after the quarterback when they brought in Toby Osunsanmi. They basically, I think he played the linebacker spot, but it was like a defensive end because all they did was tell him to go be a heat-seeking missile after the quarterback, and that's what he did. The interior of the defensive line was very disruptive. I thought that was probably the brightest spot on the defensive line. Javon Banks really blew me away just by his athleticism and kind of twitch off the snap. He really got off the ball fast. I wasn't expecting that. Damian Leo, he basically wrecked their SEMO's entire offensive line for the entire first quarter. I know John saw that a lot at Manhattan High, so he was probably not shocked by that, but that kid can play. And having him as probably your number 2 nose guard, I think people are, and maybe myself included, are underrating the interior of the defensive line just because they lost Eli Huggins.
I've been trying to tell everybody for a long time. I know you see Manhattan High and you think Centennial League football, and whatever. Like that dude can play. That dude can absolutely play.
Yeah, I think he's got stud written all over him. Maybe a little undersized for this scheme in particular, but he's going to find a way. Probably would be more comfortable in a 4-3, but he's going to find a way. And I think you saw that, at least the beginning signs of that against SEMO on Saturday. The linebackers, they were as good as advertised. I don't think I was completely like, oh my gosh, but they did everything that you would have expected in week 1. Maybe the only one was just like, really got me raring to go was probably Austin Moore. He has all Big 12 written all over him this year. I'd be unless people are going to overlook him and screw him at the end of the year. I think he's got all Big 12 written all over him. He might be the best player on the Kansas State defense, and that's saying something because they got some dudes, obviously. Easton Newsome flashed a little bit, I thought, and it's clear that he's not just a garbage time player. They had him in meaningful moments pretty quickly. So the same with Austin Romaine, actually. And I thought that of the two, I like both of them, but of the two, Austin Romaine might have had the better game. So I think you got some freshman linebackers that are really primed and ready to go as well, if not now, pretty soon. And the back end of the defense is probably where I was maybe a little concerned more than the defensive line and like Kurtz, or at least have more questions just because they had a lot less starts. The defensive ends obviously had a little bit of experience. In the back end of the defense, you just don't have a bunch to cling on to at all besides Kobe Savage and 4 starts last year from BJ Payne. But I think the guy that really surprised me was Colby McAllister. He started because Marquise Siegel was suspended, and I thought he was the best safety of the 3 starters. So I thought that was an interesting observation that I was able to make. He played really fast. I think caused 2 different offensive holding penalties just because he played through it and basically forced the referee to call it because of how much he fought to get to the ball. Really like that. Jacob Parrish had a lot of splash plays. Out of everyone on the defense, besides maybe Toby blowing up a blocker here and there, I thought the most splash plays was by Jacob Parrish. He had a couple rough plays in zone coverage where he maybe didn't get the right amount of depth, and he had first down throws on 3rd and long that got through. But other than that, I thought Jacob Parrish had a really good ball game and gave fans and people like us a lot to be excited about in the future.
Austin Moore, 3 tackles for loss. Pro Football Focus graded him as K-State's highest graded defensive player. The other thing about him, DY, is I think he was K-State's 2nd highest coverage player, which he's tremendous. Also picking up guys out of the backfield in the passing game and dropping into coverage as well. So can't say enough good things about Austin Moore, interestingly enough, Daniel Green and Desmond Purnell finished the game with 0 tackles, 2 of your other starting linebackers, and the defense still was stellar. And I don't look too much at the tackling numbers anyways when looking at that, but at the nose tackle position, guys, I think that was one of the most comforting things of what we saw in the game. I mean, Uso, obviously a stud. John, you mentioned he played 11 snaps, and he'll play more as he continues to get recovered and get back into shape from the injury. One of the things that really impresses me about Uso, DY, is not only him bowling through the offensive line and just dominating, but also he's a guy that flies around on the football field. There were 2 different times I watched him 10, 15 yards down the field chasing after a play and just hustling and going down there and getting a guy. I mean, you don't see a guy at 330 plus pounds moving the way that he does, and his ability, just the hustle factor, wow factor. And the nose tackle position, they were going up against the Remington Award winner in the FCS level for top center and Zach Guy for SEMO, and they dominated the interior of that line. This was a SEMO offense that we talked about it before. They came in to the game ranked number 2 in the country last year at the FCS at 6.1 yards per rush, averaged 226 yards per game last year, had a 2-time All-American at running back in Geno Hess, who had 4,100 career rushing yards, was second in the FCS last year with 1,700 yards on the ground, 7.2 yards per carry. He finished the game with negative rushing yards, negative 4 yards. At halftime of the game, SEMO as a team had negative 12 rushing yards, and they finished with 6. It was the fewest rushing yards by a K-State opponent since, look back to this game, 62-14 dominating win over Texas A&M in Manhattan in 2009. So,
man, I remember being on the front row of the student section telling what was the court? Oh, it was Gerard Johnson. I was telling Gerard Johnson that he was diet Jamarcus Russell. Yeah, yelled that at him all game long, baby.
I always thought Gerard Johnson looked like the part that would be a stud, but it never really necessarily panned out for him in Texas A&M. So, yeah, the run defense was tremendous. That was a SEMO offense. Last year averaged 36 points per game, top 20 in the country, and K-State just completely dominated and shut them down. They played 12 out of their top 26 players that played on the defensive side of the football. 12 were sophomores or younger. Yeah, that speaks volumes to the depth and the future ceiling of this program. So many freshmen played on that defense as well, a lot of true freshmen as well. And DY, my takeaway with you is Jacob Parrish. I mean, for a guy that's 5'10", we know he has elite speed and athleticism, but for him to show the physicality that he did out there at his size, that really blew me away. And then Will Lee, they didn't test him much. And keep in mind, Ryan Flournoy, their receiver, and you mentioned it, DY, and I had to look it up after you mentioned it. He was on Bruce Feldman's All Freaks list for one of the top athletes in college football. Had almost 1,000 yards receiving last year. And, his shuttle times and some of his cone drills and all of that would have been in the top 10, 15 of the NFL Combine last year in terms of numbers put up that he tested out at. So an elite wide receiver they had that K-State was covering, Demoria Vick, another big wide receiver they had returning. They returned some of their best players on the offensive side of the football. And SEMO as a team returned 5 All-Americans, which was the second most nationally in the FCS level. So this wasn't a scrub-like offense that K-State just dominated, and the secondary was nails. I mean, you just feel a lot better about this group. And without Siegel, who's a guy that Chris Kleiman told you and John at Big 12 Media Days could be the next NFL player out of the transfer guys and the D-backs, to do it without him and see what Colby McAllister did as a redshirt freshman just helps you build even more depth as you go along this season.
Is there any reason to be concerned about the Marquise Siegel thing, DY?
Well, it caught me off guard, and it was only for one game. Graham Kleiman said he would be back in his starting role next week. So I'm going to let bygones be bygones here and be cool with it.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other thoughts on the defense that we're missing here? I mean, I guess I will point this out. Khalid Duke, I thought looked really good. Being back in like a pure pass rushing role. He had the one like wow moment with the spin move that was reminiscent of the one that he had in the Stanford game a couple of years ago that he got through clean for a sack. But even a couple of the others, when Damian Ilalio, for instance, had his sack, it looked like Duke had beaten his guy out the edge and kind of pushed the quarterback inside. Like he was doing a lot of stuff like that wasn't necessarily showing up in the box score, so to speak. But I thought he looked really good, which is highly encouraging because they're going to absolutely need it.
I would tend to agree. I'm just kind of that's a good observation. I just thought of a few other things. In the backup linebacker roles, I think what you expect Toby Osunsami to be one. Jake Clifton's going to be there. I thought Asa Newsome and Austin Romaine looked like they were meaningful players, and maybe that second unit. The reason why I'm kind of going over this is what I would share is that Jake Clifton did get dinged up in the first half, went to the locker room, didn't come back into the game. I think he's going to miss a few contests, so we'll probably get a better idea of what else they have in the second unit at linebacker, because when push comes to shove, and this is nothing to get, and I might be wrong, don't get me wrong, because we're talking about a really good athlete in Toby Osunsami, Asa Newsome and Austin Romaine, really two freshmen that they like a lot. But Terry Kurtz, he didn't get in until really late in the game. I think he's kind of been behind the 8 ball because he might have been going through some injuries at one point during training camp. But push comes to shove. I wonder if Jake Clifton is at the backup technically at all 3 spots. I think they like him that much. There's a reason why he knows all 3 spots. So might be a sneaky injury that we might have to keep an eye on going forward. And you mentioned the spin move spike, Khalid Duke, and that kind of made me think about, I think DJ Giddens had like 10 spin moves in the season opener. Like he kept going back to that well.
Yeah, with the it just makes Daniel Green all the more important, DY, because otherwise you're going to a true freshman now in Austin Romaine, who looked good by all, but you don't really have to rely a ton of snaps on a true freshman at the middle linebacker position, which is kind of the captain of the defense. And you mentioned, Jake Clifton is your most versatile linebacker and flies all over that football field. So it will be a significant loss for the few games. Sounds like it's not season ending by any means. So you should get him back and hopefully have him back after maybe the bye week at some point. So, yeah. And I think, DY, to your point, so Toby Osunsami, he graded out as K-State's best pass rusher according to Pro Football Focus, although he didn't actually get a sack in that game. It was impressive to watch him just bowl right through guys. He showed how powerful he could be. I would just say, like, when I look at some of these dudes that were out there playing, like you look at Toby and you look at Asa Newsome, like the length and athleticism that some of these guys have and the speed, that it's just different. And you look at a Chidi Obiezor and a Trey Spivey on the offensive side of the football. Some of these freshmen don't look like freshmen physically that we're used to seeing, or true freshmen especially. So it shows how good this recruiting class was that K-State brought in. And some of these dudes certainly look the part and are out there playing meaningful snaps.
11 true freshmen played on Saturday. 11. Jack Fabris was another, and he actually looked really good.
Shout out Jack Fabris, man. He looked good.
Yeah, Jack Fabris looked really good. I know we have some people that have shared that the comp for him is actually, at least down the line, maybe not today, but maybe down the line, is Ty Zimmerman. I think we've heard those comparisons. So Jack Fabris looks like a dude, at least a dude in a year or two, if not now. So I think that's another. And Toby Osunsami, you brought him up. He's exactly what the coaches have said he is. He's a guy right now where he is completely explosive, kind of a monster physically, and really, really fast. And they just tell him, see ball, go get ball. So
I thought Nate Malak had a nice game too, DY. He had 2 tackles for loss. That play he made where he picked up the screen that they were trying to run and almost made a Travis Hunter-esque play. That's what John
it was just a full extension, like that Travis Hunter one down toward the goal line. Yeah.
He ran that route better than the running back, I think. So he knew the play. You could tell, like, that was a pre-snap read. It must have been something that he caught in film, because at no point did he get duped into what they were trying to dupe him into. He went exactly where the ball went as soon as the snap.
That was my reaction. That's what I said right after the play, DY. I said, that's a guy that was in the film room, that was prepared and knew exactly what they were doing in that situation, and made a heck of a play and showed his length and some of his athleticism. So a nice game from Matt Lack as well. Khalid Duke, as John already mentioned. Looks like a stud out there. And I'd be honestly surprised if he doesn't finish with double-digit sacks this year as long as he stays healthy. I think he has that potential.
He got 1, right? I think he got
1. Yeah. Yep.
1. Yeah. So I think overall, like, if you wanted to kind of summarize this game, outside of the obvious, like the ones took care of business, this game was like a coronation of all of us who have been saying, like, hey, the program depth is better than it has been in a very long time at K-State right now. Like the depth of talent that they have right now, completely different than what it was even 2 to 3 years ago. That's what we got to see against SEMO. Like, all of that is legit. I know at times people have been like, sometimes the coaching staff, they love to talk up their guys. And we got Will Howard as the best backup quarterback in the country for like 2 years before he did finally break through and look like that may have been true. So I know sometimes people might take that stuff with a grain of salt from Kleiman and company. But I mean, they're right. Like they have much more talent and athleticism in this program than has existed in, I mean, I don't even know because, I mean, I guess you say back to like 2012, Cole, but like, I don't know. How good was the depth back then? They had a really nice front line and a lot of superstars like Colin and Arthur Brown. But I don't know. When you're just talking about like they're rolling out waves of guys that just look different, look better than anything that's been there in a long time. I don't know when. I mean, you're going back to like Snyder 1.0.
Yeah. They and obviously this is your guys' wheelhouse, and their stars back then were a little bit more experienced and seasoned than perhaps the ones that Kansas State has this year. So that's probably the difference right now between 12 and 23.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at the 2012 team, John, I look at Ty Zimmerman going down, and they had to flip to a true freshman in Dante Barnett, who ended up being a really good player. So that's just an example. They might not have had maybe the depth, the upfront talent. First string was certainly awesome and a great team. So yeah, I think that's a great point. There's tremendous depth that they built on this football team, and it's a bright future for the program. We didn't even mention it, guys, but I just felt like this game was everything that you wanted to see happened for the most part in this game. And you got to see Chris Tennant bang through a 51-yard field goal, which I think is significant just for his confidence. And we talked about it on the Patreon post-game show, John, but that was into the wind. I mean, he boomed a 51-yarder into about a 10 to 11 mile per hour south wind and had plenty of leg on it.
Yeah, had like 7 yards to spare.
And I'll say this is like that. It was great to see, and like you said, huge for confidence. But I will say that the length is not even on. He's made those before too, so he still has a little bit more maybe to prove and to put behind him from an all-encompassing standpoint. But obviously, you'd love it in him to make his first one instead of miss it. So it's a good stuff.
Length, the leg is not a problem for Chris Tennant. We know he's got one of the strongest legs ever to play at K-State as a kicker. And heck, I think back, his accuracy percentage on 50-plus might be better than honestly within, because you think like the Texas game in 2021 at Texas, he banged through like a 52-yarder in Austin when he had to go on the field in that game. And so, yeah, he's got a big-time leg. You do want to see him bang through some 35, 40-yard type range ones, and But his confidence has to be in a good place going into the rest of the season. At this point.
The first kickoff almost went into the crowd.
Yeah.
Like it was right there on the doorstep of doing that. So it kind of gives you an idea of what his range is. Here's a question before, and obviously there's a lot that goes into this, so there's multiple layers here. Does he finish his career with a field goal make of 60 or more yards at some point? Because that's on the table, I think.
Yeah, man, I feel like they'd be confident enough to roll him out there to try it.
Yeah.
Little Martin Gramatica. What was Gramatica? Is he at 65 against Northern Illinois?
Yeah, 65. Bill called the timeout so they could get it. What did that put him up by? Like
it's like 58 to 7 at halftime.
That's awesome. I think that even more is like the size discrepancy between those two couldn't be more robust.
That is for sure.
Tennant, yeah, he's a good looking specimen.
Yeah, Chris Tennant, if kicking doesn't work out, you can just put him at defensive end, I think. So.
Yeah.
Well, let me contextualize all this to kind of wrap it up. Place it against the backdrop of what was an objectively bad week for the Big 12. I mean, not good, especially in the state of Texas. TCU losing to Colorado, Texas Tech losing at Wyoming, Baylor loses to Texas State. Like, it was not very good. Oklahoma State won, I think, by 14 over Central Arkansas, but did not look good. Had to play 3 quarterbacks. Alan Bowman attempted like 20 passes for 80 yards. I mean, not good in Stillwater. BYU won 14-0 over Sam Houston. Like, there were some ugly results for week 1 of the Big 12. Even, Texas, for all the hype with Texas, they were farting around with Rice quite a bit. They did not look particularly impressive, and there are now Texas fans still fighting about Quinn Ewers. If only somebody would have told them that Quinn Ewers is not really that good. And so all of that placed against K-State's performance here, I think you have to feel pretty good. I know it was SEMO, and it's just a game that you should take care of business, but a lot of teams across the league had a hard time taking care of business the way that K-State did.
Absolutely. And yeah, and it makes you feel probably better about where Kansas State can compete in the Big 12. If you had some doubts about whether or not they could get to the top of the mountain, I think the path is there, at least from an athletic or talent standpoint and an ability standpoint compared to the rest of the league. I will say, as a proponent of the Big 12, we will start claiming Colorado and Utah now to kind of make the picture look not as gloom and doom.
It doesn't change. Oh, go ahead, John.
Here's the problem, though, DY. Colorado is Deion going to coach a game in the Big 12?
I don't,
because Florida is probably working on Billy Napier's buyout right now to get him out of there to hire Deion. Like I don't know that he's even going to make it there. Sorry, Cole.
No, and it's interesting because Deion was asked about his alma mater the other day in a press conference, and he wouldn't. Yeah, he said he wasn't a Seminole, so like going to Florida might not be a problem for him. He was like saying he graduated from an HBCU, so that he did. He was very strong in that defense and upset some Florida State fans, but he was speaking the truth. He's obviously very proud of that, and he should be. And so, yeah, I mean, that was my thought too, John. I mean, Colorado is clearly ahead where we thought. I mean, we said on this pod that TCU we thought was probably a fraud this year and overranked. I mean, we go back 2 weeks, guys. We talked about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now I thought TCU would still possibly come in 7-0 because their schedule was so weak, but they lose as a 21-point favorite at home. Too bad, TCU. Loved seeing that Prep Boy tweet that you sent, DY, of them taunting Travis Hunter before the game, and then the great shot of him after the interception that Hunter made right in front of him.
Yeah, no, that's great. One more point I'll make on that. I think Colorado's clearly, me and Cole are going to have to eat our words on Colorado.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to jump all the way to Colorado being a Pac-12 title contender like Kurtz and maybe some others will. But
no, I don't think that they're that.
But no, but I think they're definitely way ahead of schedule or more competitive than I ever gave them credit to be. I also think TCU's might be even more of a dumpster than I gave them credit for. And last one, Kurtz, you were just 1 year ahead of your time, man, when you picked Colorado last year.
Yeah, man, we should have had you go back. I mean, you hit easily on the Oregon State pick though yesterday, John. That was
DJU was slinging it, man.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. A fresh start for a former 5-star quarterback. Oregon State is going to be dangerous in that Pac-12, and you went 1-0 on your picks, and DY and I both lost. Our secondary picks we gave all of you guys for our locks of the week hit, but unfortunately, Penn State decided to score a touchdown with 6 seconds left to blow my West Virginia cover. So thanks to James Franklin for that. Hey, I'll just say, guys, on the front of the Big 12 schedule, and I think K-State's toughest home game is UCF.
It might be because Oklahoma State kind of contributed to the opinion that they might not be all that. TCU, people are hyped for that game, but I'm not sure they're that good. So no, I totally agree. Where I aired on was taking the Texas State Baylor under, and unlike Cole, who barely missed his, I kind of did the Kurtz thing from last year where I missed about like 40 or 50 points. So
who thought Texas State was going to put up 42 on Dave Aranda, who at one point looked like he was going to have the best defense year in and year out in the Big 12, and now the star is not shining nearly as bright anymore.
It's not going to be on the hot seat after this year, even if this continues. But next year might get a little warm.
I don't know. I feel like that seat would be fairly warm next year. Yeah, if they have a like sub 500 or like about what they did last year again.
Texas State was supposed to go 2-10.
Well, again, Texas State is another test of the Deion thing. They had like 50 transfers in. They had almost as many as Colorado did. So
the incarnate word guy. Yep.
I mean, it's going to start fueling narratives about how you can flip rosters here with the success that some of those guys are having. I can't get over. I know people aren't going to love me talking about this, but Dylan Edwards looks so damn good, man. I mean, Dylan Edwards looked awesome. And DY, I heard him do his post-game interview, like he does the post-game interview on the field, and there's all this talk about, I know his recruitment was exhausting. But he did an interview. He sounded very sharp and like team guy. It was not like me. It was very like team. I just think there's a lot more substance to what Colorado's doing than anybody gave Dion and company credit for, just because
there is. No, there definitely is. But they're going to do it with a lot of flash and talk too. And that's okay. I don't think that here's something I get trapped into doing. There's not a right and a wrong way to do something if it brings you success and your team is bought in. So you can, maybe the way Dion does it is not your thing. It's probably not mine. But if his team buys into it and it's successful, then there's nothing wrong with it either. I mean, he did a halftime interview where he said the Heisman's chilling at Travis Hunter's crib.
They said it should have been, but they missed him on 2 deep balls. So, yeah. I mean, that'll be the other thing with Colorado. I don't think you can play Travis Hunter 119 snaps every single week. That's probably going to wear him down. But, yeah, anyway, it was impressive.
We'll have to beat Nebraska.
There's going to be some demands for some more NIL money coming from a freshman running back here, probably at Colorado after this game. So, and probably deserve it if he goes through the rest of the season the way that he does. So you look dynamic. And you're right, John. I mean, if they had Dylan Edwards at Kansas State, this offense would be borderline unstoppable. I don't know if they have Trayshawn Ward then, because they got Trayshawn Ward later in the transfer portal process. Who knows how that works out. But, yeah, Dylan Edwards definitely looked the part.
Colorado, Nebraska is now a little bit more intriguing just for the fact that I want to see how much Colorado wins by.
I don't know. Do you think that I could totally see them choke that game now?
Oh, it's a total letdown spot. Yeah, they could 1,000%. Because how many times have we seen these, like,
we're saying choke? Like, that's what Nebraska does.
We've seen these, like, Labor Day performances before that have just gone for not. UCLA and Texas A&M played like a crazy game a couple of years ago. That didn't matter. Texas and Notre Dame, the Texas is back game from a handful of years ago. That happened on Labor Day weekend. Like, we very well could still look back on that and be like, okay, well, TCU and Colorado were both like 6-6 teams. You know, I mean, I think that's still there, which means that they could absolutely lose to Nebraska.
Fair. No, but I
mean, I don't know, you know, I'm not trying to hate on Colorado, but I'm just saying if we're, and Nebraska does play some pretty good defense.
Maybe, but they don't have a quarterback.
They don't, but against the Colorado defense, the best thing may just be to run Sims 100 times and just see how that goes. Try to control the clock.
Bring back the triple option to Nebraska for a game.
I saw some, what was it, for Nelly? I don't know. One of the major college football guys, this after Nebraska lost on Thursday, was like, I'm going to say it again. Nebraska should just go back. Maybe it's Max Olson. So Nebraska should just go back to running like the triple option, just become a triple option school at this point. So that's congratulations, Nebraska football. That's where you're at these days.
I just love that we managed to make this an hour once again. John was trying to wrap this thing up at like 42, 43 minutes, and then we stretched it.
Yeah, now we're talking about Colorado and Nebraska.
I wasn't trying to totally wrap up everything. I was talking into special teams next, but
my bad. I'm sorry.
Path. But no, we're fine. We're good. Appreciate the help of our sponsors as always. Holiday Distillery, get your 360 vodka, your Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon, and Homefield Apparel. HomeFieldApparel.com, 3MA23 to get 15% off your first order. So make sure you go check them out and support them. And hit up the Patreon page, patreon.com/3MA if you want more content. I mean, we're dropping content almost every single day right now on the Patreon page, so you can get all sorts of it, including much more. If you want more of this, Cole and I talked for an hour after the game about what was going on there in a live chat. So if you become a Patreon member, you can have access to live chats after the game and actually interact with us and ask the questions that we discuss on those. So patreon.com/3MA in order to do that. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. For Derek Young and Cole Manbeck, I'm John Kurtz. We appreciate you listening to another 3MA. Take care, and we will talk to you later this week with a little Troy preview. See ya.